Welcome everyone back to Voidtune to discuss the player rankings for Survivor 48. We are wrapping this season up in a very neat little bow. As you can tell, no season review. I've always just cared about the players. I like discussing what the players do and how they interact and the strategic side, yada yada yada. I just did not feel right talking about the whole season in general like I've done for the last first two seasons I've done. I felt like I had to when in reality I just didn't care that much. So moving forward, players. That's where I like to what I like to discuss. So let's move on. The way I'm ranking is based on both how they performed in this game as well as how I think they might do on a return, and I'm going to be using both inside and outside information to do so. I honestly like the players this season, so I'm really excited to be discussing that. So, with that, let's get started. Alright, and we are starting off with number 18 with Charity. Now, I don't think Charity is necessarily, in my opinion, the worst player of the season, or a terrible player in general, but there are other people that are considering Charity the worst player of the game and probably one of the worst players of the new era. And combining all their stuff with observations that I've made myself, I have to agree with them in a sense. It's where Charity was always at the bottom. She was overconfident and didn't really have a good sense on the games in the sense that she didn't even realize she was on the bottom. And the only ally that she had in Mitch was also blindsided when she was voted out. So for all those reasons, I have Charity at number 18. Now number 17, I have the first boot of the season. I have Stephanie. Stephanie, while I don't think was a bad player, played the wrong game coming into it, where she decided to play a passive game and let the game come to her. There were other players on her initial tribe that were playing the opposite, and playing a very aggressive game in direct opposition to her. And the fact that she was seeing this and didn't adapt to it to try to make sure she wasn't the one on the, the bottom shows how Stephanie wasn't a good player this season. So for those reasons, I have Stephanie at number 17. Now number 16, I have Kevin. While Kevin did initially make good alliances and relationships with people in the majority, which he became sort of the de facto leader of, he was also partially delusional, where he believed he was still in good position by the second round, to where it seemed like his majority alliance, mainly in Cedric and Justin, pushed him out, and into when he tried to make a move with them to try to get out their other ally, Say, they decided to turn on him, where perhaps their more optimal move would have been to take out Say, but they didn't trust and believe in Kevin to make that happen. So for those reasons, I have Kevin at number 16. Now at number 15, I have a player that made it far into the game, but I think if someone manages to get votes at every single tribal council that they've gone to and nearly gotten home in several of them, I think that counts as something to why they're not a good player. I have Say at number 15. It's like I said, she got votes at every single tribal council that she attended, and and nearly went home in like three of them until she was finally taken out at her last one. And it's not because she was a threat to anyone or was in direct opposition to anyone. It was because they just simply didn't want to play the game with her anymore. They saw an opportunity to not have her on the jury and instead of taking out a potential threat in Mitch at the time, they decided to take her out because they didn't want her on that jury and didn't want her to play a factor in the game moving forward. And it really shows how bad Say played this game, where she was highly aggressive and developed these adversational relationships with players like Mary, Kevin, Cedric, especially people on her initial tribe, where she played aggressive and developed rivalries. And she came into the game with this mindset of my way or the highway, which turned people against her, which was the reason why people were trying to get her out. And by the time of the merge, she wasn't really a threat to win because no one was going to give her the votes at the end to win. So for those reasons, I have Say at number 15. Now, number 14, I have Justin. Justin, I think, did play a decent game coming into it, where he was pretty much in the middle and safe for the first 2 rounds, and was in a pretty similar position going to the third round. The mistake he made was knowing that he was in a precarious spot in that third round, where he could have been voted that round, but he didn't make the active moves in order to make sure that he wouldn't go home that round. He just left it up to chance. Why? I'm not entirely sure, but the fact that he didn't make the active moves to make sure he was good that round, and that if Mary's Shot in the Dark did land, that would be Say going home and not him. And the fact that he didn't inform his number one in Cedric of his situation also played a factor into why he went home, which could have been easily avoided. So for those reasons, I have Justin at number 14. Now, number 13, I have Bianca, the other player that essentially Cedric screwed over, where on the initial Logi tribe, she was in a good position. She was potentially number 4th or 5th in the pecking order in a strong alliance that consisted of all the members of Logi besides Star. And she had a number 1 ally in Thomas, which was a very strong duo. And then even on the switch, she wasn't necessarily in the worst position. While there were discussions early on of getting her out, it seemed to have shifted and changed. It changed to where she was in a pretty good spot, where she could have either gone with Siva to get out Say, or with Vula to get out Chrissy. And she put herself in that active power situation in order to have that decision, in order to make sure she wasn't the target because she didn't have a vote, so that she could keep herself safe. Her mistake in the end ended up being telling Cedric that this was all her plan to make sure she was safe, and that these 2 opposing sides would go after each other and not her, which ultimately led to her vote out in the end. So, while she did play a good game, the fact that she felt like she had to inform Cedric of these decisions led to her downfall, and the reasons why I have her at number 13. Alright, now at number 12, I have the player who was the ultimate demise of Justin and Bianca, Cedric. Now, Cedric was actually in control of a lot of the pre-merge, as he was the one making the decisions, but I felt, and a lot of other people felt, confused by those decisions. Like, what's Cedric doing? What is he up to? Like, it was very hard to understand, and very, very, like, not a lot of faith going into it. Like, I'm just very perplexed by the decisions he made, where he tried to be as loyal as possible to players like Say, who in reality probably would have been better if he just turned on her. I don't have much faith in Cedric's decisions in the game from this season or on a return, so I have Cedric at number 12. Now, at number 11, I have our final pre-merger in Thomas. It's very unusual to have a pre-merger or even a fourth place finisher like Thomas as number 11. However, a lot of the previous players made such big mistakes, it propelled Thomas up here so high, as well as the fact that he had such control on his Nishawagi tribe, where he was probably the most best positioned player there, who there leads me to have much faith that he would do well on a return. However, what worked against him was the fact that he told these little lies from here and there, which made people not trust him as much as initially. And he just has that look about him like he's a sneaky, he's a conniving player, which was ultimately the reason why Kyle and Camilla targeted him in that split tribal, in that tribe switch tribal that they went to, which was ultimately what led him to be out of the game. Now, number 10, I have a player that made far into the game. However, they were just really bad at the game. Okay? Number 10, I have Star. Star, my God. People give Star a lot of credit for I don't know what. I don't see it. Star was always on the bottom. She was on the bottom of the entire Logi tribe, the Switch tribal, and a few rounds leading up to her vote out. The only times she wasn't on the bottom were the initial mergatory vote, the split tribal, and the Chrissy round. Other than those 3 instances, she was always on the bottom, and if they went to tribal at any of those points, she was the one that was going home. She was always going to be the one voted out during the entire pre-merge. She was blindsided during the day vote, and then she was immediately the next one out. And Star just made such perplexing decisions in who she trusted in the game. Ay caramba. For all those reasons, I have Star at number 10. Now, at number 9, I have a player who wasn't in position early on, but her decisions leading up to her vote brought her here. I have Chrissy. Chrissy played a good game early on. She seemed to be in the majority on the original Siva tribe, and placed herself in a good position in the Switch Siva tribe, where she was with Mitch, and although she was the target of the opposing Vula duo, she was the one sort of making decisions on that tribe, and potentially could have gotten her way, and she did get her way, where she wanted to vote for Bianca initially. She changed her mind, according to her say, but then, thanks to the help of Cedric, she was able to get her initial target in Bianca out. And going to the merge, she was in a good position until she sabotaged her own game by calling out to the majority alliance, like Joe, David, Eva, in a very public way, which resulted in many of her potential allies going against her and swiftly voting her out. While her initial setup leads her to be in this solid place on the list, the fact that she self-sabotaged her game in such a manner, her and the quick result of that leads her to be at number 9. Now, number 8, I have our 5th place finisher, Mitch. Why do I have Mitch here? He did nothing in the game, which was a very frustrating thing to hear every single episode. I'm going to make a move. I'm going to make a move. I'm going to make a move. You did not make a move. Mitch is at number 8 mainly because he was very likable. That was very clear. His social game was what kept him around versus players like David, Mary, and Star. And I believe the rounds he was given made it so he was able to repair relationships that potentially his ally Charity sabotaged, because after Charity was gone, he was probably supposed to be the next one out, but because of certain circumstances, he was able to repair his relationships and make it far into the game. Now, that misconception of his likability being a potential reason why he would win was wrong on other players' parts, as I believe he would have gotten 0 votes in the end. However, his own misconceptions of, okay, I can make a move whenever I need to, were especially wrong in this case. And let's be honest, he had no shot winning. So, number 8 for Mitch. Now, number 7. And I could have easily switched out number 7 and 6 to be in either position, but I only chose this player to be at number 7 for a specific reason. At number 7, I have David. David was in a very good position early on, where he was in the majority and was able to gather allies like Kyle, Eva, Camilla to an extent. But going to the merge, he was even able to create this very public Strong Five alliance, which was able to go forth in a certain manner, moving forward into the game. The problem was when he tried to do more than he was probably supposed to, and it resulted in him getting this image of other people thinking he was paranoid and trying to create chaos in the game, and people were very willing to turn against him, and it led to other allies of him to be ostracized in the process. So for those reasons, I have David at number 7. At number 6, now I have David's right-hand woman, Mary. Mary really impressed me this season, as even though the majority of the time she was at the bottom, she had this unique ability to escape being voted out. She survived Vula to where she made to a swap and managed to gather allies like David, Star, and Eva, 2 of those relationships being extremely important, to where then she was a part of the majority alliance. So for a bit, until she was back on the bottom, but she was still able to survive a couple of votes before getting voted out officially. Mary had a very unique social game to her, as well as a strategic ability to both be underestimated and use her perception to fool players into not believing that she is that big of a threat, even though she is. For those reasons, I have Mary at number 6. Now, number 5, I have Shaheen. Now, Shaheen is a very unique player, as he was in control for a lot of the game. However, he was not at the forefront of it. He always had Joe in front of him directing the votes, but he still got his way majority of the time. He was in the majority throughout the entire pre-merge and the swap. He lost an ally in Thomas, but he recovered instantly. And throughout the merge, he was always in the majority, and never really being at real risk of being voted out. We had Kyle and Camilla trying to go at him in the beginning of the merge, but that was never going to happen. And according to AfterPress, Shaheen was a really solid contender to win the whole thing. Now, do I necessarily believe it 100%? No, I still think he would lose in certain scenarios. However, I do think he was a really good player, and the fact that they had to blindside him in the fashion that he did to really showcases his great game ability. His very Achilles heel was overconfidence, where he was overconfident with Kyle, where he slipped information that resulted in him getting out, and he believed that he could beat anyone, Joe, Kyle, anyone, which I'm not entirely sure that was the case. So, for those reasons, I have Shaheen at number 5. Now, at number 4, I have Joe. He was in control for the majority of the game, but he was never actually going to win this season. Even though Joe was a very strong challenge threat and social threat, as he managed to protect himself through his social relationships by building genuine bonds, he was never actually going to win because his allies were beside him, and those he sent to the jury weren't going to vote for him. When it came down to the finale, and I saw who was there, I started asking myself, who does each person have that they are going to vote for, that the jury members will vote for? I started off with Joe, and unlike the others, I asked myself, who won't vote for Joe? And that's when the realization hit me. Majority of the jury members at that point wouldn't vote for Joe, either because they didn't want to vote for him, or they were actively campaigning against him while they were in the game. The only person that probably would have voted for Joe was Cedric, who was the one person on that jury Joe did not vote for, who voted out. So, even though Joe put on an amazing game for us on the season, he was never actually in a winning position at any point throughout the merge, because of the fact that the jury members on their way out who wouldn't vote for him. For those reasons, I have Joe at number 4. Now, number 3, I have Camilla. Camilla played a very impressive game throughout the season, where she was always in some form in control of what would happen in the game. She was in control at Siva, and she played a big hand in the Thomas vote during the switch, and she was always a part of the vote during the merge, whether from the bottom or from position of strengths, such as the Shaheen vote. The one question I have about Camilla's game was why she was on the bottom in the beginning. She had the relationships with multiple people in the majority, so shouldn't she have just been in the majority and not on the outside of the minority looking inward? Like, why was she in the minority at all? That's the one qualm I have with Camilla's game. That, and I'm not entirely sure she had a legit road to the final 3. I think she easily makes final 4 in most scenarios, but unless she won that final immunity challenge, she was not going to make it to the end. For those reasons, I have Camilla at number 3. Now at number 2, I have, in my personal opinion, my favorite player of the season, Eva. Eva played a very strong, loyalty-based game that started from the very beginning, where she initially made her strong bond with Joe, which then corresponded to an alliance with Shaheen and Thomas, putting her in a very good spot in the game, where she was never actually going to go home the entire pre-merge, the initial Lucky Tribe. She was completely safe. They were going to take out Star. Then in the swap, she bonded really well with David and Mary. making certain that either Charity or Star would be voted out there. And then once we got to the merge, it was a clear run. She was in a bit of danger during the beginning of the merge based on her public idol and her alliance with Joe. But once that was out of the way, it was a clear sail to the end, where she helped put together the majority alliance, an alliance that ran the game, the Strong Five, and every ally who wanted to bring her to the end, and no one wanted to take her out. They were always talking about taking Joe out, but never her. And because of her social game and this bond that she had, she was never brought up as a target from that point on. Her name was never put down as an option, and everyone liked her very much in the game. So she had real win equity going into Final Tribal. Based on what I thought she had the lock votes of David, Star, and Mary. That ended up not being the case, with David not voting for her in the end. But otherwise, she played a very strong game, created very strong bonds with people, and had a real chance at winning the game if she maintained the control that she had before the Shaheen vote and explained it thoroughly. Now, at number 1, I have the winner of the season. I have Kyle. Kyle definitely played the best game, hands down, from everyone on this season. He played a spy game in a season that was built around honor and integrity. During the early SIVA days, he was in the majority alliance with David, Camilla, and Chrissy. He had very strong number ones in David and Camilla. And then during the swap, he and Camilla pulled off an incredible move, blindsiding Thomas, who had an advantage in his pocket, with an extra vote and a correctly placed and played hidden immunity idol. After that, he managed to create very strong bonds with Shaheen and Joe, while also recognizing that Shaheen in particular was a threat to get out at some point. He easily sailed into the merge, facing basically no adversity. No one wanted to take him out as a potential threat or was ever brought up. He played the middle perfectly with Camilla, both being in the majority and the minority, where he had relationships with everyone, and through that created deep bonds where they did test his resolve to make the big moves, which led to he voting out of the minorities, where Chrissy, Star, and Mary were thoroughly on the bottom and were voted out. But he was willing to make big moves where he managed to get the numbers on his side to take out David, who was at that point a big threat to expose his game, and he laid out everything perfectly in order to make the big move of the season on Shaheen, which ultimately led to him winning because he was able to undermine the perceived top duo in Joe and Eva by taking out their number 3. And because of that, he was no longer afraid to bring them to the end because he had a golden ticket of how he undermined their dominance. And because of that, he was able to easily take out Mitch. He was able to win the final immunity and take out his biggest threat in Camilla at that point, because they did play similar games, and get to Final Tribal, where he put on a great showing of how he played the game, was awarded the win. That is why Kyle played the best game of the season and why he is number 1. And that is it. that is all I have to say about the players of the season of Survivor 48. I've had fun watching the season. I know not everyone liked the season, but I personally like the fact that a lot of people that I find interesting and who like to watch got to the end versus players that I think wouldn't have brought who have been as noteworthy, I guess. 49 is going to be in the fall, so I'll be back again to talk about that. But as far as more current events, as of the time of recording this video, the 50 cast has not become official. But by the time the video is online and is public, it will be by a few hours. Like, I'm currently making plans to watch the official reveal of the cast on the morning show. I'm not sure what I'm going to do when that happens, if I'm going to talk about the 50 cast or wait till the season comes. I'm not sure yet. I might do a little something, might make a whole another video. I'm not sure. I'll have to decide then. But that's a few days from now. So until next time, see you all later. Voidtune out.